Factoring by grouping is typically done when you have 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you have 4 terms, you actually separate it into 2 smaller problems to consider. So we're just going to look at the 3x squared plus 12x at first separately from the second 2 terms, negative 2xy minus 8y. So first, when you look at the first 2 terms, you're still actually looking for a GCF, but you're looking for a GCF between just those two. So 3x squared plus 12x, the GCF is 3x. So I factor out a 3x just like I would regularly when I would be trying to factor out a GCF, and then I'm going to put the leftovers in parentheses. So 3x squared divided by 3x leaves us with just an x, and then 12x divided by 3x is plus 4. Then we do the same thing for the second 2 terms. So I want to look for the GCF here. So the GCF between 2 and 8 would be 2. The first term is the only one that has an x in it, so x is not going to be part of the GCF because it would have to be a variable in both terms in order to be a part of the GCF. There is going to be a y included because there's a y in each term. So I'm going to factor out a 2y, but I'm also going to factor out a negative as well. So whenever we factor out a GCF, if the first term that we're going to factor from is a negative, typically we want to factor that out as well. And I'll mention when we get to the next step why it's important with factoring by grouping. So we factor out negative 2y, and then we have our leftovers in the parentheses. So negative 2xy divided by negative 2y is going to be a positive. The 2's cancel and the y's cancel, so we're left with just an x. And then negative 8y divided by negative 2y. And negative 8 divided by negative 2 is a positive 4, and then y divided by y is just going to cancel out essentially to become 1. So in order for factoring by grouping to work, you need to have the exact same thing in your parentheses. So for this one, if we hadn't factored out the negative 2y, we would have had in the parentheses next to it negative x minus 4, and then our parentheses wouldn't have matched up. So when they match up, essentially that's actually another GCF. So this first term, and I can call it a term now because it's all considered multiplication, and then the second term both have an x plus 4 in there, so I can actually factor it to the front. That's our new GCF. And so we get x plus 4, and then once we factor that, when we have our leftover pieces from here, which is the 3x minus 2y. So our final answer is x plus 4 in parentheses times 3x minus 2y in parentheses. And it would have been the same thing if I wrote them in a different order. So if I did in parentheses 3x minus 2y and then times parentheses x plus 4, it would have been the exact same result. And with all factoring, the way that we can check our work is always with multiplication. So let me write out our answer. X plus 4 times 3x minus 2y. So if this is the correct factorization, then when I multiply it through, I should end up with the same exact expression that I started with. So I'm just checking. Oops. Right here, I'm just checking my work. So x times 3x is 3x squared. X times negative 2y is minus 2xy. Four times 3x is plus 12x. And then 4 times negative 2y is negative 8y. And when you multiply it all out, the order doesn't matter again, because I could just reorder this and say, well, what we have is 3. Oops. Go back to the black ink anyways. It's hard to see the pink. 3x squared plus 12x minus 2xy minus 8y. So I didn't need to do that last step. That was just an extra step just to check my work, check my factorization. But our answer is x plus 4 times 3x minus 2y.